Hello and welcome everybody to the NFL Week 4 Weekend Review.
We will recap every single weekend game from week 4 in a rapid fire manner.
Enjoy. During the video, please enjoy an assortment of different highlights from Week 4 in addition to our speaking, so enjoy the video. And feel free to like and subscribe.
The Panthers, that was a very impressive home win against a team with some playoff aspirations. Really good, just overall good team effort. Teddy Bridgewater is amazing. Mike Davis came in and was productive for the second straight game, and they held Kyler Murray relatively in check. So overall, just a good game for the Panthers, a big win.
Like you said, Kyler Murray was held in check. He only had 133 yards while he did have 3 touchdowns. But a disappointing game for the Cardinals, who are now 2-2. They have playoff aspirations, and I think they'll be able to bounce back, but they really got to bounce back quick because I can't take another loss. Kyler Murray, main rusher, 78 yards. And this is a disappointing game for the defense and the receiving core, especially Kyler Murray.
Next game, Jaguars at Bengals. So for the Jaguars, in terms of stopping the run, they were absolutely terrible. Joe Mixon was able to run all over them. And overall, that Bengals team was able to drop 33 points on their head, which is not good. This team had a fluke win against the Colts week 1. I'm calling it a fluke. It was a fluke. The Colts of last week won the last 7 years. That was almost, guaranteed. So this is a tough loss for them to take. I think that, like I said, I think they'll be around where they were last year. They're definitely not a playoff team. But I still think they do have potential to, kind of be a little sneaky team, kind of give some teams some trouble down the road.
In the first one of the season for the Bengals and the first one for Joe Burrow's career, Joe Burrow had 300 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, so a decent outing for Joe Burrow. Nothing special, but nothing terrible. Joe Mixon, 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was absolutely unstoppable this game. And it's a young Bengals team, a Bengals team that's still rebuilding, so it's good to see them get their first win, and it's good to see Joe Burrow go out and play like that.
Next game is Browns at Cowboys. So for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott obviously looked great again. He's throwing all over the place. He's actually looking pretty good this season, but his team isn't winning. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Mike McCarthy does not want to run the ball. Like they ran it 18 times this game. You have one of the best run backs in the league. You gotta run it more because he's gonna get a lot of yards on the ground. They only ran it 21 times last game. So it's overall, I think they gotta run the ball more. Going into next week because Zeke is still productive. He's still one of the best running backs in the league, and I think you can run all over this Giants defense going into next week. So you got to run the ball more if you're the Cowboys.
And a great game for the Browns, really showing people that they are legit and they are a team that people should be worried about. Baker Mayfield, 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jarvis Landry, 37 yards and 1 touchdown passing with an amazing dot to get him 6 points. Rushing as well. Johnson, 95 yards. Odell Beckham Jr. with the crazy run later in the game, 73 yards and a touchdown. And he had a great game receiving, 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really a game that Odell should be excited about because he's been, he's kind of having some negative news recently, especially with his performance. He hasn't been doing too well in the field. So this is a great bounce back game for Odell and a great bounce back game for the Browns.
For the next game, we have the Vikings at the Texans. This was a big win for the 0-3 Vikings and a tough loss for the Texans. On the Vikings side of things, like I said before and I'll say it again, they're a really good offense. They've scored 30-plus in every single game they've played so far, 2 of which were against 3-0 teams, except for the game against the Colts, where they were only able to muster 11 points. But that's because of the elite Colts defense. Dalvin Cook looked amazing, but then again, he's Dalvin Cook. Adam Thielen looked great. He's a star. And Justin Jefferson, the rookies, looking like it's going to be a good replacement for Stephon Diggs. And so this Vikings team, getting off to an 0-3 start is tough if you want to try and make the playoffs. But they were playing 3 really good teams, so I think they can get back on track and potentially make a late push for the playoffs later in the season. Vikings fans, you still have hope.
Yeah, but one team that has no hope is the Houston Texans. The team absolutely blew up in their face. Deshaun Watson is the only bright spot with 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Will Fuller had a good game, 108 yards on touchdown. He was one of my sleeper picks, and he's looking pretty good. But they can't get anything going. Happily or luckily, they fired Bill O'Brien just a few hours ago. But the damage has already been done. They lost their star players. They lost their picks. It's looking terrible for Texans, especially Texans fans. You guys should be worried about the future because your team is blowing up in your face, and it really looks like there's no hope. It really looks like there's not going to be a good outcome this season.
Yeah, they were on the rise, but then for some reason they just got rid of so many generational talents. Clowney's gone, Hopkins is gone. Watt's only getting older, and Deshaun Watson looks like his career is kind of going to waste because they were on the rise, but they're probably gonna have to go into a rebuild. So that's really tough right there. It's kind of sad to see. The next game, Saints at Lions. So for the Saints, a bounce back win. It was I think it was a little bit closer than they might have liked it to be against, in my opinion, a pretty average to bad team. I think they proved me wrong. I don't think they're one of the worst teams in the league anymore. They were able to beat the Cardinals, but they're still not a playoff team in my opinion. But the Saints, Drew Brees looked pretty good. I think he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Kamara looked good. He's been looking good all season. And then Manuel Sanders also had a good game receiving. And Traquan Smith filled the void left by Michael Thomas a little bit, catching 2 touchdown passes. So the Saints, that's a good win for them.
And a decent game for the Lions. Matthew Stafford, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he did have a pick. The run game really couldn't get going. Adrian Peterson was the top rusher with only 36 yards. This is a Lions team that no one really expected to do that great. They're 1-3 at the moment, but they kind of were able to give the Saints a little scare there, 35-29. So, really looking. I mean, it's nothing special from the Lions, but they're probably outperforming a lot of people's expectations.
Yeah, I agree. And then for the next game, we have the Seattle Seahawks at the Miami Dolphins. So for the Dolphins, it was a loss, but it was a close loss. I think they definitely showed, like I said, they're a sneaky team that can give some of the better teams some fits. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, he definitely had a lot of yards and a decent completion percentage, but he threw 2 picks and no touchdowns. That's no bueno. And also it's hard to win games when your leading rusher is your quarterback. So overall, I think they're definitely just going to need to, the Seahawks, they have a pretty good defense, but they're not an elite defense, I don't think, but they're good. So I think, this Dolphins team, I don't think they're a playoff team just yet. I think they definitely have to work on that run game. I think Gaskin's talented, but that O-line, I think, might need some work on the interior to generate some holes for Gaskin, get him going, because the only way they're really able to get rushing yards is through Ryan Fitzpatrick scrambling, it looks like. So overall, it was a tough loss, and there were some negative signs there. It was a close loss, and like I said, they're a sneaky team.
Yeah, and another good game for the Seahawks there. A little bit of a step down for Russell Wilson, 360 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, which isn't bad by any means. It's just that Russ was having an MVP caliber season, and he still is. But a little bit of kind of a disappointing game, but a win's a win. They're still 4-0. Chris Carson, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, 106 yards receiving. Pretty good game for the Seahawks. I mean, it was closer than a lot of people would have thought, and Seahawks fans would have liked. But the Seahawks are still looking really good. They're still looking like one of the best teams in the league.
Yep. And for our next game, we have the Los Angeles Chargers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So for the Buccaneers, it was a good home win. They still have yet to beat a team with a winning record. So that's one thing, but a win's a win. We said it before with them back in week 2. Tom Brady looked great. He had 1 pick 6 early, but then he turned it on after that, really looking like the GOAT a lot of people make him out to be. Ronald Jones had a good day on the ground. And just overall, a really great game for them. They were just kind of clicking all cylinders. Their defense struggled a little bit against the rookie quarterback, which you don't want to see, but Justin Herbert's definitely very, very talented. So just a win's a win. It was a win. That's all I have to say about this one, but Tom Brady looked great. So that's a bright sign for the Buccaneers.
Another very disappointing game from the Chargers, blowing another double-digit lead. Sorry if I sound a little angry. No, it's not fun being a Chargers fan. But look on the bright side, Justin Herbert, 20 for 25, 290 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception, 10 yards shy from another 300-yard game. That would have been his 3rd straight. If the rookie quarterback's looking good, it's just that everything else is not. The rushing game was very disappointing. Justin Herbert was the leading rusher with only 14 yards. Jalen Guyton's looking good with a touchdown. But the defense looked incredibly disappointing. One of the only bright spots was probably rookie Kenneth Murray, who's having a pretty good season. But just a very disappointing game for the Chargers. A lot of penalties, and blowing another lead like that is not fun. But it's the GOAT, Tom Brady. If he plays like the GOAT Tom Brady, there's really not really much you can do.
For our next game, we have the Baltimore Ravens at the Washington football team. For the football team, you're a rebuilding team. Ravens are a Super Bowl contender. This is not a game you should go into expecting to win. You just gotta look for kind of bright spots from your young players like Dwayne Haskins, Antonio Gibson, and Terry McLaurin. And speaking of Terry McLaurin, he was phenomenal with 118 yards receiving, and Dwayne Haskins was also good with 314 yards passing. Did not throw a touchdown though, which might be a little disappointing, but he did rush for 1 touchdown. And then Tony Gibson looked okay. He had a rushing touchdown, but didn't have that many yards. Granted, they didn't really get him the ball that much. They had trouble running the ball. This is a very, very good Ravens defense, so I would have expected as much. So just overall, this is a game you should not be upset about losing. Honestly, 17 points is something you should be happy about putting up on the Ravens defense because of the state of your team right now. So they're a couple years away from being legit team in the league right now. So this is kind of just like, oh, okay, we lost. We expected that.
So a bounce back game for the Ravens after taking a tough loss to the Chiefs. Lamar looking like Lamar, 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, but he ran for 53 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Just a pretty good win, a lot closer than people would have liked. I think the only bad part about the game is we didn't see a lot of Trace McSorley, so kind of sad, but it was a good game nonetheless for the Ravens.
For our next game, we have the Buffalo Bills at the Las Vegas Raiders. For the Raiders, they lost, second straight loss. They're probably disappointed. They've went from 2-0 to 2-2. I mean, this is a team that could definitely be a potential wild card team. They're definitely up there with some of the other teams contending in the AFC for a wild card spot. I don't think they're a lock for the playoffs by any means. I think they're just as likely to miss it as they are to make it. So Derek Carr's looking phenomenal this season, though. He looked good in the game. But Josh Jacobs was held in check, only 3.2 yards per carry, which is not good. If Josh Jacobs isn't able to run the ball on elite defenses, we've seen him tear up defenses that aren't great against the run. But if he's not able to run on the elite defenses like the Bills, then that might be a little disappointing for them. So disappointing loss. This is a really, really good Bills team. I wouldn't have expected the Raiders to win this game, and they kept it pretty close as well. They lost only by 1 score. The game felt a little less close than that, but just overall, like, they're okay. They're okay. They're still a realistic wild card team.
Moving on to the Bills. The Bills had another great game, 288 yards and 2 touchdowns for Josh Allen. Devin Singletary didn't have a great game, 55 yards on the ground, so the rushing game was not there. But the passing game definitely was. Stephon Diggs, 115 yards receiving. Another good game for the defense, like you said, keeping Josh Jacobs in check. And this is a really good team, looking really good. And they're definitely, I wouldn't say a favorite for the Super Bowl, but they definitely are a contender.
All right, and then for our next game, the Indianapolis Colts at the Chicago Bears, a game that, as a Colts fan, I really want to win. I definitely expected us to win. I definitely thought we would win this game. Our defense locked up Nick Foles. Obviously people are now saying that the Bears are good and that we haven't played anybody, but come on, this Colts defense is legit. They're number one in almost every statistical category. If they may not be the best defense in the league, but they're definitely up there as one of the best. I'd probably put like the Patriots or the Ravens above them. And overall, just like this defense is super, super good. So this Colts team is going to win games. They're low scoring. They're going to pound the rock. The only way the main weakness for this team is that Philip Rivers can be exploited a little bit easily by good pass defense. But the Chicago Bears passing defense was one of the best in the league going to this game, and Philip Rivers did not throw a pick, which is something to celebrate if Philip Rivers is your quarterback. So just overall, a really good win for the Colts. Jumping up to 3-1, they should be 4-0 right now, but I think they've had, to put it lightly, a cakewalk for the first part of the season, and they've got a crazy schedule coming up with the Browns, Bengals, Lions coming up before they have a tough game against the Ravens. So they should be 6-1 going into that Ravens game, but I'm not going to jump to any assumptions.
Speaking about the Bears, disappointing game. A lot of people thought they were good, but they're not an amazing team. They had a few lucky wins. Nick Foles, only 249 yards, a touchdown and an interception. David Montgomery was completely locked up for only 27 yards. And this wasn't a great game for the Bears. And they're really not looking like the great team that everyone thought they were going to be, or everyone thought they were after those 3 wins.
Yeah, they're barely a wild card team, if that. So Giants at Rams. So for the Rams, they won, and a win's a win, said before, but this is a game they definitely think they want to blow out the Giants. So, like Rams fans, you can celebrate that you won, but you don't ignore the fact that this is definitely a game you should have blown out the Giants. The 49ers were able to blow out this Giants team with with a bunch of like third string players in their team. So the Rams, I think they're still a really, really good team, still a good playoff team, but I think this is a game they probably want to blow them up, but you can celebrate the win.
Yeah, and you were at least able to hold them to only field goals. 3 for 3 on field goals for Graham Gano. Just a pretty terrible Giants team. Daniel Jones had 190 yards, 0 touchdowns and an interception. And he was their leading rusher at 45 yards. So just pretty much a terrible game for the Giants and a little off game for the Rams. You should have scored a lot more points, but a win's a win.
Yep, exactly. So Sunday night game. So for the Philadelphia Eagles, a big win for them. They're now the lead. They're now in the lead in their division in the NFC East. A very, very sorry NFC East. They are 1-2-1. So I mean, one of those teams is going to go to the playoffs with a losing record, most likely. So for Philly, Wentz still looking like he could be a starting caliber player against the 49ers team that is depleted but still good. Just overall, it's a pretty good game for Wentz and the Eagles team as a whole.
Yeah, and this isn't a bad game for 49ers showing that they're a bad team because this is pretty much their fourth string team. Nick Mullen, starting quarterback, 200 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, really kind of cost him the game there. He was benched for another quarterback. I wouldn't say disappointing game because I don't think anyone's expecting them to play well with their fourth string team, but losing to the Eagles, even with this team, is just something that you can't do. You got to beat the Eagles because they're one of the worst teams right now. 1-2-1. Carson Wentz is not playing well, so you got to take advantage of this. Even though you have a lot of injuries, you still should be winning this game.
All right, and then for the game that got postponed, the Chiefs and the Patriots. So for the Chiefs, they got a big win against a Patriots team that held them in check for the first part of the game, but then they kind of turned it on later in the game. Mahomes was Mahomes, didn't throw a single pick. He hasn't thrown all season. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was good. Just overall, another good win for the Chiefs. This team's a Super Bowl contender. That's really all we have to say about this one. They also held the Patriots offense in check. Granted, they did have Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham in that quarterback. But just overall, good game for the Chiefs. They got to win. That's good.
Yeah, and the Patriots, terrible game. The Chiefs, the game could have been different if that fumble was actually called an absolutely atrocious call. Patrick Mahomes fumbled the ball, called no fumble. The refs are really seeming like they're trying to give Patrick Mahomes another MVP. But Patriots aren't winning this game. Brian Hoyer, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jarrett Stidham, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions on 5 for 13 passing. So absolutely terrible game for Stidham. And Damian Harris was probably the only bright spot with 100 yards rushing. Just a terrible game. I mean, you really got to hope that Cam Newton recovers. We're really hoping for Cam Newton to recover. Currently has COVID-19. So we'll really have to see what happens with this team because disappointing loss. So we're looking like a decent team until Cam goes out. So hopefully they can bounce back.
Yeah, and it was also James White's first game back since that tragic accident with his parents. So my prayers still go out to him and his extended family for that tragic event that happened a couple weeks ago. And then for our final game, the Packers-Falcons, which just finished up. We're recording a little late today. For the Falcons, they lost. But this is definitely a game that I think they expected to lose. The Packers are one of the best teams in the league. Falcons are not one of the best teams in the league. Matt Ryan, he was meh. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Todd Gurley, he didn't really run for that many yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. Their leading receiver was a guy, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but that he was your leading receiver. And, Julio Jones did re-injure himself, and Calvin really was like a non-factor that game. So just overall, like this is a game you definitely were gonna lose, but it's just the way that you lost it kind of is gonna be disappointing. I mean, you're 0-4, your playoff hopes are probably at an all-time low. So this is kind of a rough one for the Falcons. I don't know. They play the Panthers next week. They gotta win that one. That's all I really have to say about that.
Yeah, and the Packers are really playing like the Packers doing Packers things. Aaron Rodgers is the Aaron Rodgers we all know and love. 327 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Aaron Jones, 71 yards on the ground. Tanyan with 3 touchdowns receiving. A great game for him, especially without Devontae Adams. I really needed people to step up in the receiving core, and good game for the defense. The Falcons scored more points than I thought they would, but obviously the Packers win in another dominant fashion, and the Packers are looking like a great team right now. So Packers are a team you should be scared of.
Yep, Aaron Rodgers still playing good, even at his ripe old age of 36. So, all right. Thank you for watching the NFL Week 4 Weekend Review. We will be coming out with these every Tuesday. They will be uploaded, and you can enjoy them. They're just kind of quick, rapid fire reviews of every single game that went on during the weekend. And also we will be having our normal episodes. So our content flow is increasing. You guys can definitely enjoy that, and it might even increase further with a little special surprise that we might have coming. They might have in the coming weeks. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.